Hey everybody, Ryan here from Music City Live. Welcome to the show. I have Emily Jean Flack here, singer, songwriter, musician, and amazing dancer, as I hear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Where are you originally from?
Dorchester, Ontario.
Okay, you were born here.
Yep.
Dorchester, Ontario. Where does because you sent me a note about Ireland. Where does Ireland come into the whole thing?
Yeah, like I moved there in 2016, I think. Yeah, 16. I have Irish roots, so I play Celtic music. So I grew up in the tradition, and then I decided to move there. So small town Dorchester to a small island.
To a small island.
Yeah.
And so when did you come back?
I came back in 2020, right before COVID. It wasn't 2020. It was the summer of 2019. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So.
What brought you back from Ireland? Because I have to imagine that was pretty different over there.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It was totally different. What brought me back? Often in the summer, I would come home anyway because there would be shows, festivals, different things, because I still played with a lot of folks from here.
Yeah.
And then I think my visa was up and I needed to renew it, or it was going to be up soon. And it's not that a chapter was closing, because I did think I was going to move back there, and then COVID happened. But
Right.
yeah, like I was just kind of taking a second, maybe going to spend a couple months at home. I wasn't totally committed to where I was going to end up,
Sure.
and then I was forced to stay here.
Yeah, well, that's a famous story now,
Yeah.
right? That a lot of people have, where they were going to go one direction, and then the pandemic sort of changed that perspective.
Might be a blessing. Well, for me, it's a blessing. I've had a lot of great things happen, but amazing when you're forced to have to stay. If you can make the most of it.
So what was Ireland like in terms of living there, and also in music? Like, what was that experience like?
It was awesome. I went over originally because I was pursuing my master's in vocal. I did it at the Irish World Academy, which was a school within the University of Limerick. And so I did that. I wanted to kind of immerse myself in the tradition. I had always wanted to study music, but I didn't like any of the programs that were really out there. Sorry to say that to anyone. But I just wasn't really wanting to focus on classical music. And then jazz was awesome. But again, like I wasn't 100% wanting to invest like a year, 4 years, or even 2 years of a master's here to do it. But I learned of this program that was in Ireland that was a 1.5 year, I'd say, program that was the style of music I grew up with. Obviously, like I wanted to travel as well. And so it was like a really great opportunity. And so that's what brought me there. But then again, like I thought I was just going to go over and do this program and then probably move home. But it turned out to be much more fruitful, and I stayed for I stayed for about 3 years, and during that time I was working with some folks up in Belfast.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I recorded my first EP, produced by Pete Wallace, and then mixed by David Bottrell, which was great.
Wow.
And
I know David. We did a thing here with him in the studio, like a seminar. We had invited all the recording students, and he's cool.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Great guy.
So yeah, like all kinds of great things happened, and I collaborated with like tons of musicians there, and now very good friends of mine, and it's still a very important place to me. I'm going back quite soon, actually. So.
And the style of music that the program focused on was?
Traditional Irish, like Celtic music. I did voice, but other people could go and take fiddle, they could take piano, they could do dance, Irish dance, though they bring other teachers in with different styles. Any of the guitar, like all sorts of instruments you could focus on. So.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there was nothing here that interested you, so you obviously...
That sounds quite terrible.
No, but it's not. It brings up a good topic to talk about. So do you think that something like that, even on a microcosm level, do you think something like what you experienced there would survive here if somebody actually created that program?
Yeah, I totally think that. I think music programs... well, I definitely think they would benefit from more folk music, because there's a lot of technique, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of, oh my gosh, there's so much that you learn through folk styles of music. I mean, Canada has extremely rich, deep roots within itself for Celtic music and folk. So there's a relevance there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I think like the biggest part is you're learning by ear a lot of the time. You can have, a lot of scored music, and it can be, you know, you can mix it with different styles. But yeah, am such a proponent for it, and I hope probably one day I can help. I don't know if I would develop something at a university or where, but I hope I can continue to try to bring some light to that.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. Yeah, I was, and I'll bring up the education piece later for sure because it's interesting. But that's curious because I know lots of people in my life that have traveled to Australia, Europe, different places to go to school.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, yeah, I'm younger, I can do it, I want to travel, whatever. But some of them are you're right. Some of them are saying, hey, you know what? It's just a better program. It's more in what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me, as I'm a bit of a troubleshooter that way. Like I always look at that and go, well, why can't we do that? Like where's the solution for that here, right? And because some programs in some schools are struggling, and it's like, okay, well then, why don't we look at what other people are doing well, and try and do that for Canadians, for us here, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So what was early days like for you? So born in Dorchester and grew up in a musical family, right? What was early days like for you growing up in music or with music?
It was effortless in a lot of ways because my mom is a musician. She's a singer and is the lead singer of Leahy. So that right. Celtic family thing was very much a part of my upbringing. So I just was surrounded by it. I am a little bit different. I'm an only child, and we didn't live near a lot of my aunts and uncles. So mom and dad, I give a lot of credit to because they really worked to still give me these roots. But like seeing your mom do it, it's not hard to take interest in it. And I was very lucky to see someone do it at such a high level. I remember vividly when she was off performing with Shania and stuff like that. Like that's crazy experience. Yeah.
How old were you when that was going on?
I was young. Like I think I was 4 or 5, maybe a bit older than that. It was over the course of a couple of years too. So mom did end up stopping because of me. She wanted to be home. So she didn't do the whole tour, but because at the time not as many people had kids. So there weren't babysitters out there and stuff like that. So a little bit of a different time.
But I worked with your mom. I worked with the Leahy family a bunch. And I think I told you that when we met. And you know what? It was some of the greatest, I think I told you this too, some of the greatest shows to do lights for ever.
Cool.
Yeah. I have a handful of acts that I can, draw on a piece of paper. If somebody said, hey, what are some of the funnest acts that you've ever done lights for? Because people ask me all the time, what's the biggest act? It's like, well, define that. Like, I don't understand what that means really. I mean, because it was a popularity contest. I don't know. So, but I look at it because I was always playing my light board like an instrument.
Right.
I would always look for what is the funnest, where am I practically busting faders off the board doing, right? And the Celtic music, no matter what the style, was always at the top of the list.
I am overjoyed to hear that because I sometimes think, I don't know, like Celtic music, it can be done in a very corny way, and then it can be done in a really amazing, rich way. And that makes me very happy.
There was two acts, specifically Canadian acts, that would be, if I was talking like that Celtic style vibe, but just fun in general.
Sure.
Would be Leahy and Spirit of the West.
Cool.
Both were and very different.
Totally.
But both super pro and super passionate and just loved what they were doing and delivered, and people just ate it up like crazy. And so it was just again, it was an absolute pleasure to do lights for because musically it was awesome. Visually, the performance, everything was awesome, especially Leahy. I mean, just the fact of how in sync they were and how polished everything seemed. And I say seemed because it's not always that way.
Let me tell you, it's not always that polished. It's pretty impromptu.
Yeah, but you know what? It didn't come off that way, and that's what I liked about it. I really did like the fact that everybody was just having fun, and so anyway, shout outs to your mom. That's and the guys from Spirit of the West and the whole Leahy family, and but it was to me it was a fun time. But cool. So you were that was so 4 or 5 years old. You were super young, and so how did that at what point did you say, you know what, I think I want to do music? Like what point was that?
I don't know, because I started singing. Well, I started dancing first, and I hated practicing. I wasn't the greatest student, my poor mother, but I took an interest, but it was always kind of wrapped around this, like, you have to practice, and then you do, but as a kid you just want to be doing your own thing. So eventually I quit. That's right. Sorry. I was dancing. I went there. We have competitions in Ontario, less unfortunately now than before, but fiddle and step dance competitions. And they were really, really important to building community within the Ontario Celtic music scene in old time. And so I popped in for a summer circuit, and I did well. And then once I won the one competition, I was like 12 or less than that. But I said, enough, I need a break. And so I did. I quit for about, I think, a year or two. But then it was like later on, which was, I was singing at the time. Mom kept me singing. And during that time, I kind of stopped dancing and didn't really play a lot of Celtic music even. I was singing and I was writing. I was starting to write. So music was still in the house and in my life. And Mom would find ways of helping me perform in the community, whether it was at church or school or something. But then we got asked to do this last minute gig because there was a snowstorm or something and musicians couldn't get there. And so it was like all the calls went out to everyone in the area who can help put this gig on. It was at the casino in Ajax. And
Wow.
I know. And then anyway, so I saw 3 girls step dancing, and they were a group, right? And I remember watching them, and I sang and I did my thing, but I wasn't like in it. I was just, got up, sing your song, and then get off the stage. And I was amazed by these young teenagers just doing their thing. And then that's when I looked at Mom and I'm like, okay, I'm in. And from there I was in. And then by 16 or so, I think I was booking my own shows, and then I'd go out on tour with my mom's family on their Christmas shows and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like anything though. Like, you can be shown stuff, but you have to choose it eventually. So
Yeah, right.
anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and it's interesting too, is like those little teenage girls had no idea that they influenced the daughter from the singer from Leahy, right? I mean,
oh no,
they would probably freak out if they knew that, right? But it's one of those things where that's what it is, though. It's like music is a community, and I was talking to you about that earlier.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you were kind of immersed and surrounded by it, but you're right. It took you to choose to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
because some people would think like, hey, oh, she's got it made. Like she,
no.
It's one of those things where people, and I'm the same. Some people say, oh, your dad's Ron. You got all the equipment in the world. And my dad tells me all the time. He goes, you could be one of the most successful, DJs, producers, singer, songwriter, whatever, because we have all this stuff to put me on tour. But I just want to do what I do.
For sure.
I have my own thing, right? And like you say, you have to choose what it is you want to do. So
absolutely,
it's interesting. So how old were you when that all happened? You were about 15, 16?
Yeah, I started going out on shows with Mom probably 13 or 14.
Okay.
So I probably 12 or 13 I said, hey, I'm going to start dancing again and all that jazz. And then Mom went out with Leahy and Natalie, my aunt, on their Christmas tours and some summer shows and stuff like that. So really was given a great opportunity to learn, on some pretty nice stages, though it was a rude awakening when I started booking my own shows that it's not quite as easy. But yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, like yourself, you're saying you were given a lot, but then there's a lot that comes with that, and a lot of learning that comes with it.
You literally pulled the words out of my mouth. There's a lot of education, and it never ends.
No, it doesn't.
It never ends.
Yeah.
Your mom is probably still learning, and
Totally.
my dad is still learning. So that never stops. So you have to be a student of whatever it is you're going to get into for sure.
Totally.
So still living in Dorchester, still kicking around here.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so I was talking to you earlier about this, and I want to bring it up now because now's a great time. So you're still in this area, and you're still developing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I talked about this with some of the people that are on the show about, do you have to leave home to become successful in music? And I'd love to get your take on this. What's your honest take? And
Okay.
no matter which way it goes, it's all good.
Yeah. I would say yes. Yes, for a portion of your life, not because you can't make, well, whatever making it means. I have no idea.
I don't think anyone really
no,
does.
and I
No.
hope you don't know. I hope that's not the goal. I hope it's a way other different goals. But anyway, yeah, so I would say yes, because you need to see the world. I don't mean it because you need to go to Nashville and become famous, or get the record label, or whatever the goal is. Not that those goals aren't good. Of course they're good, and they should probably be part of your, ideas at some stage if you want to do it professionally. But like me going to Ireland, I had to grow up. I had to learn how to work with new people. Obviously you can do that at home, but I think seeing the world and kind of figuring it out on your own is a good thing. So a chapter of your life should be at least dedicated somewhat to something like that, whether it's you're living somewhere or you're just choosing to go places. So go to Nashville, see what it's like, or find a program that's really interesting if you can manage it, and take it, or take chances, I guess is what I'm saying. But then on the flip side, I would say that like I've learned, like living here, lots of amazing opportunities have come around, and I was astonished to see how many artists and how much London has the arts at its core. Like, it's amazing. And so far isn't necessarily better. My parents would laugh to hear me say that, because it has been a bit of a joking topic. I say a lot, oh, I'm just going to go back, which I'm not. But, you miss the life sometimes you had to other places. But
I get that.
Yeah. But oh no, like, you have to, I mean, being in a different place isn't going to give you a career.
Yeah,
You have
right.
to still do the work. So
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to do the work. I think it helps sometimes if you're in a certain place for certain genre, like you going to
Sure.
Ireland,
of course.
immersing yourself in the Irish culture for Celtic music. I
Yeah.
think made sense, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And the same thing with, like you commented on Nashville, it would be the
Yeah.
same thing. If you want to be a country singer or a major singer-songwriter
Yeah.
of any genre, I think you need to go there, at least experience it, like you said.
Totally.
Maybe do some co-writes, whatever, but don't
Yeah.
feel like you have to stay there to the point where, you bankrupt
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Because that won't make necessarily make or break your career per se.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it takes a team, right? You have to build a team, and
Totally.
I've seen people that go there, build a great team, and then move somewhere else.
Right.
Look at some of the examples in Canada where
Mm-hmm.
They became successful here, but then moved off to LA, or they
Sure.
moved off to New York, or whatever it is, and then we're just as successful, if not more, living there. But then at some point later in their life, they came back.
Totally.
And they're still touring the world.
Yeah.
Some of them are here in London,
Yeah.
which freaks me right out. I had no idea
Yeah.
your mom was in Dorchester. Like, that
Yeah,
freaks
yeah,
me right
yeah.
out.
My one of the greatest gifts that has happened is since I came home, I've started playing with my cousin Xavier a lot more. He's actually a great story too, because he lives up in the Ottawa Valley right now, but he got discovered through the community, through Celtic. He was posting his videos on Instagram, and Brett Kissel found him. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and so he's playing with Brett now. So like, you
Oh,
don't,
that's so cool.
Yeah, but like you should see, like, the Ottawa Valley is not Toronto. It's quite remote, but there's Xavier doing his thing, and he's done super well. And so there's opportunities everywhere. Would be the first point. But then the other thing for me is we're writing a lot of music together, and we're recording right now. And I mean, if I had stayed in Ireland, would I be doing and making this music with him, among other great musicians that are here? Like, I play with Shane Cook as well. I'm playing with my family still. Like, yeah, sometimes you don't realize what's, like, literally outside your front door,
Yeah, it's interesting.
So
Well, it's a good segue to bring up London then. So,
Yeah.
you touched on it. London, I'm born and raised here.
yeah.
And I've been blessed to travel like
Yeah.
you around, see shows, do shows for my father as a lighting guy, but also
Amazing.
my grandparents were really into cruising, so we we've been on some family trips and stuff.
Yeah.
My wife and I have been over to Europe, and so I've got some of that exposure to what's
Sure.
out there, and I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
still in
Yeah,
London.
totally.
I'm really super passionate about the arts here. I'm passionate about supporting it, about helping it. Um, helped Corey, with the music office stuff for years, and helped with the film office stuff too in the early stages, and
Mm-hmm.
helped to get funding for that. So I'm all about
Amazing.
wanting to support the arts here in town.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that is interesting to me is that and we were talking about this earlier, so I might as well bring it up now.
Yeah.
Is the venue thing, and just I would say infrastructure in general.
Right.
We have an incredible. You mentioned it earlier. We have an incredible amount of awesome, talented artists here,
Yes.
but we lack some infrastructure. We're still. I have this conversation sometimes with Corey, and I feel like it's not necessarily a bad thing at this point. I think we're just in infant stages. Like we're in
Right.
early stages of
Right.
major growth. Because we do have a lot of talent here.
For
There's
sure.
there's a bunch of investment money here. There's a lot of really of the pieces that are here. We just need people who are passionate about being the infrastructure parts.
Sure.
Right? So
Yeah.
whether you're going to open a venue or you're going to open a management company or a booking agency, I'm going to have a booking agent from back in the day come on in a couple of the next episodes coming
Okay.
up. So it'll be interesting to get his take on that about, agents in today's world and how that affects local musicians here. But what's your sort of take on London from a venue standpoint and from an infrastructure standpoint, being an artist
Right.
like coming up here right
Yeah.
now?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit hard right now, but that's not to say it's bad. Like I give Corey and yourself, so many people. There are a lot of people looking and for ways of making it easier to get gigs, creating opportunities for this. Like I've gotten some really awesome gigs through the music office, which I'm grateful for beyond, because it, like you were talking about having people who are on your team, like when you feel that support from your community, that's number one. You can have all the venues you want, but if you don't have that, so that's number one. And I think London's amazing at sourcing its artists, finding opportunities for them, even if London right now has, I don't want to say limited.
Limited, yeah,
Yeah.
in a way, yeah.
But I will say, like, I would absolutely love it if there could be this is my dream, my wish list, but a listening room kind of venue. Doesn't have to be big, but doesn't suits a singer-songwriter, suits, some of those artists who you might have a lively show, but you might not want to be playing a lot of covers, or you want to maybe launch a EP, a small
Sure.
EP you've done, right? Because there are a lot of creators here. And, there are spaces, but it's a lot of money and sourcing the people if you're trying to, find the audio, find all the pieces that are part of putting a show together. That said, however, I am impressed with the venues that we do have, and how, like, even when I was young, like, we are awesome for bringing in all sorts of different artists into London. It's an amazing spot to have on your tour. It's between Toronto and Detroit. It's like there are a lot of things there. So I'm super hopeful that
Absolutely,
we will continue to grow. I was saying though with you before, it's funny, like here I am saying what I want, but like it's the people that choose to do the stuff that need the credit, because I'm just sitting here saying I want a venue. Maybe I should start doing that.
Maybe you should
I
open
need
a
to
venue.
do it.
Yeah.
Like
well,
I need
don't know.
to get off my high
father's
horse.
owned a venue, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I know. Well,
But yeah, no. It's all good. And if you and let's take it one step further. So that venue that's on your wish list, what would the capacity of that venue be?
oh, I don't even, if it was 150, that's fine, or 100 even. Like it can be like a room. Like that's fine. I'm pretty easygoing. I just think of some of the, I'll go back to Europe a little bit, two. Europe would be interesting because when I was in Ireland or England or Scotland, like they're so passionate about their music that they of course come and play, right? Like maybe that's another thing where we just need more businesses of some sort, whether it's restaurants or not, to say, hey, let's create a space and in our room or in our wherever to let music be there. and then like, but it doesn't have to be restaurants. It could be libraries, which we do have, obviously, a library, but different spaces that aren't necessarily alcohol driven is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I get that.
And then, although you can still have alcohol there if you need to. And then Nashville, I have to give it some credit. It had some great venues, obviously, but really supportive of the songwriters. Like I remember going to this one, it's one out of many, but you know, the singers, socials are up behind them. It was a singer-songwriter panel, right? You have a lot of those in Nashville. And the name, the socials, all that, and they were really helping to promote these artists that were on the stage. And I think that'd be amazing if London had something like that, where we could just create the infrastructure for songwriters to feel like, yeah, this is a little showcase or something, a songwriter round, or
I've been and there's people that are going to watch this that are going to go, yep,
no.
I've been pushing for this for a while, and I even said I would help build it. These types of opportunities for singer-songwriters.
Yeah.
But the big thing about London is we're now becoming the bedroom community for Toronto,
right?
In a way,
Yeah.
and so obviously real estate is prices are increasing, and it's becoming more and more difficult. I was saying this to you earlier. It's becoming more and more difficult for people to get into the market and build these venues, right?
Totally.
So you're right. It could be something else, like you mentioned, a library as an example, but there's lots of different things. Even a store. There's a store in Nashville. Shout out to Two Old Hippies. In the Gulch. I mean, that is such a cool thing that they have this. They have, first of all, a regular store that sells merch and stuff, and then they have a guitar store selling Breedlove guitars on the one side, and then on the other side is a stage, right, where they do this sort of singer-songwriter performance kind of thing. So that's an example of you have a store, maybe your store is doing okay, but you're looking for other revenue streams. It's a fairly decent sized space,
sure,
and maybe at 7 or 8 o'clock, you pull a drape across, and now it's a venue.
Yeah, totally. I would love that. I mean, even strip it back even further, like house concerts too. Like I know So Far Sounds does it, and I've done a couple of those, and never underestimate that. A little bit, definitely more intimate, but I feel like I'm talking too much though about what I want, and I don't do enough about it. I'm feeling like I sound whatever, but yeah, I give a lot of credit to people who do support venues and create these opportunities, because London, it has a lot. And it has a lot of people who are willing. So I need to maybe just pull up the socks myself.
Well, you know what? So. You know what you do bring to the table now is the fact that you're willing to put butts in seats.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you. I think that's harder. It
is harder.
I think that's a lot. Well, I think it's a lot harder to do than build the venue. I mean, building the venue, as someone who's come through a family that's built a venue, I mean, it's not easy either, but it's certainly easier than consistently putting butts in seats today in today's day and age.
It's for sure different. That's a conversation I have a lot with my mom, because it's just the whole how we make money as artists is very different. And I personally I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm honest, so here we are. The social media game, as I'm going to call it, is not in my nature. I love doing this when it's like raw and honest, but if I have to sit in my living room and create content, that is hard for me. Some people are so good at it. Can I go write a song in the living room? For sure I can, but it's just different. So now there are so many other factors that play into how to get bums in seats, and honestly, times are tough. People are investing their money differently sometimes. Yeah, and absolutely. And I do respect that. I mean, it's hard for a lot of people. So it is, and it's certainly different from back when your mom was touring in the 90s and stuff. I mean, it was very different back then. Yeah. And now social media plays a big part of this, but just the internet in general. Because people now have access to YouTube. And they have access to all of these videos of all these shows in all these incredible venues worth millions of dollars, right? And festivals worth tens of millions of dollars. And so this is their frame of reference. You have 10, 12, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 25-year-olds all looking at this going,
Well, my measurement now of an awesome show is here.
For sure.
And there's that.
Yeah.
So that kind of plays in sometimes.
Right.
Because I have a lot of people who've been on the show that talked about festivals and about how festivals have killed the club market. And I mean,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that there's maybe in certain genres, okay, like so dance music being an example, maybe that's true. Because maybe you, as an EDM kid, you want to go to Veld in Toronto and you want to see 50 DJs for the price of one. I get it. Okay, fine. But I don't know if that's necessarily what happened. Some people would argue that it was the smoking thing. That these are older people usually, but they say that smoking killed it. And then there's other people that said that I think we changed it from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock for last call, right?
Yeah.
And that killed it because people come out later.
Right.
And not as many people come out late. So there's all these factors as to why people think that the club market got killed. But I'll be honest. There was a club venue in London called the Knack back in the day. And I did shows there between, I would say, 150 to, well, I think max, I think we could put in there about 1,000 people, but that was like rammed. But usually it was, like we did Cracker there and we did The Watchmen there. We did Matt Good there. And we did all these bands there. It was incredible. We did Lenny Kravitz there. It was a Molson Wind to get in.
Right on.
We did, and all these dance acts, and it was a great venue. But I did lights there for all those shows and got to see all this incredible talent come through town. But that was, it wasn't massive.
Right.
It wasn't multi-million dollar.
No.
It wasn't even that classy. It was, it was a club.
Yeah.
And that market struggles now, big time.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. I mean, for various reasons. I noticed in Ireland, everyone's closer together geographically. Like you can just walk down to the pub, right? Or if you want to go see a show, like the furthest you're potentially going to have to go is 2 hours, right? Like to drive if you really want to. So there are a lot of factors. I'm not saying it's bleak though. Like there are a lot of, like I have to admit, festivals, especially in folk music, they are not only just a great opportunity to perform, but it's like a huge community builder, as I'm sure are other festivals. It's very exciting. I know I haven't done it myself, but a lot of my friends have done the American Irish festival circuit. Lots of festivals down there. And it's like very community based, like when the bands are all kind of doing the same circuit together.
How many people would show up for those festivals?
Oh, I have no idea, but a lot. Yeah. Like I was down at Pittsburgh Irish Fest, and I honestly don't even know the numbers, but it would be like 1 tent would have been packed for 3 nights. That's 1 tent, 1 stage, packed for 3 nights. And then like 2, I think, other stages plus a bunch of workshop stages, and it's packed. I don't know if that's big or small actually, but pretty impressive that so many people love the Irish scene. And I mean, here in Ontario, Goderich Celtic Roots, like amazing festival, really fun to play at as an artist, and then I've attended as well. It's amazing. So yeah, I give a lot of credit to the festivals for that summer. It's awesome.
Yeah, but, interesting. Yeah. I didn't even know there was a festival circuit in the U.S. But
huge. Yeah, like Milwaukee Irish Fest, and it's a thing.
Wow. Yeah. And is it as much dancing as it is music? Like is it both?
You have a lot of music, more music.
Yeah, more
than
music?
I'd say dance, but you definitely always have dancers there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's interesting. And so the dancing thing I think is interesting. We'll talk about that. So you were into it and then got out of it and got back into it. How important is the dance relative to the Celtic music scene?
Oh, it's huge. It's like the music itself is for dancing to most of it. Not necessarily the hard shoe Irish stuff or the step dancing that I do, but it's dance music. Like you were talking about how awesome it was to do lights for some of the Celtic bands, and like I think that's because it is that type of lively, like infectious feeling music that makes you want to be extreme, and for a lot of people that would be dancing, right, to express. So and any like folk music, cultural music does that. It's like it's innate in your soul. So oh, for sure, like the music and the dance go hand in hand, and the percussive nature of, I mean, I'm going to talk specifically Canadian Ottawa Valley, but its roots are in French Canadian step dancing. And then you also have the Cape Breton styles over there, which are more similar to the old style of Ireland and Scotland. Like there are a lot of ties through the dancing to the rest of the world. But yeah, like we have it's percussive, it's athletic, it's and the music, like to dance to this music it's really actually amazing when you think of what drummers do and what us dancers do with our feet. Like it's very intricate. It's a great workout. But yeah, like they go hand in hand. Major. Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm biased. My experience working with your mom and the Leahy family is like, you know, I know exactly when you're saying what you're saying. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've experienced it. And for those people who haven't experienced it, get on YouTube and go look right now.
I agree. Yeah, I'm proud.
I think it's awesome, and I think that, you know, more and more people should get into dancing. You know, I was dancing in clubs before I DJ'd in clubs, and I had so much fun dancing to the music and expressing myself and dancing with other people and connecting, that I got into DJing. I wanted to curate the dancing, curate the music.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and my dad encouraged it, but I think that we don't dance as much as we used to.
Oh my gosh. No, we need to do so much more.
What's up with that?
Oh, I think people are locked in their rooms on their phones. I don't know. Like, or we're doing TikTok dances. That's not dancing. That's trying to get likes and feed your ego, if I'm being completely honest. I have done videos on TikTok with dancing. Not like that, though. I've done like my step dancing. So I'm not perfect. But anyway,
but you understand it, though.
Yeah, but social dancing and... oh my gosh, it was part of dating. Like my parents were just telling me about how they would go dancing in Toronto as their dates, and my grandparents the same thing. And actually, it's funny you say just the infectious nature of what, like, expressing yourself in a dance room and then you going and DJing to curate that. I remember being like at our family weddings, there's no shortage of music usually. And so I was singing with a bunch of my friends. We got a band together for my cousin's wedding, and I was singing this one song, When You're Smiling. It's like that old jazzy When You're Smiling. But then at one point in it, we went quicker. We went 1, 2, 1, 2, when you're smiling. Right? And then it was amazing to watch everybody on the dance floor, and everyone knew how to swing dance. I highly recommend everyone learn. It's so much fun.
That's awesome.
And very attractive. But they were dancing, and then the moment I hit like 1, 2, 1, 2, and the band's in, the whole dance floor, it's like everybody looked at me, and then like once the beat came back in, they were right on. And it was like, I wish I had a video. It was like a movie. It was like Hairspray or something.
That's
it was
awesome.
So good, and we need more of that.
Absolutely. People don't have a clue if you haven't, you know, and I think some of it has to do with a lack of self-confidence. You know?
Yeah.
And that's part of what you're saying, like being in your room locked up on your phone. You know, you're not connecting with people and building up any confidence of any kind when you're doing that.
You have to ask them to dance. You have to go risk.
Oh, that's terrifying.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, but it's age old. You're totally right. I mean, my grandparents met on the dance floor.
Oh.
And in Belgium. And my grandfather, I've mentioned this on other shows, so that this is not news to people who've been watching all the shows, but my grandfather was not very well off. My grandfather grew up, his family, they lived in a converted chicken coop. Literally in a small town in Belgium. And he talks about there being one bed. He passed away this year. So yeah, it's all. He had a long life. Trust me.
Yeah,
he retired at like 45. So he had 40 years of celebration after
great.
that.
Okay.
But he would tell us the story about, you know, there was one bed. There's like a hole in the roof. But he met my grandmother on the dance floor in a dance hall that was kind of in between where they both lived. She lived in a town, about an hour and a half away, hour-ish away, hour and a half. And he would ride his bike 45 minutes to this hall. And I'm sure at the time, based on what I know now, I'm sure that she was like the daughter of a diamond cutter, and like she was probably way above his level, right? But at that time, he was a good dancer.
Right on.
And because they met on the dance floor, and it had nothing to do with where she came from or what her dad did or where he came from or where he lived and what he lived in. He was just a good dancer, and he asked her to dance, and she agreed to dance, and they fell in love.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
And so that is the quintessential.
Yes.
But this is the thing, is that, for all these people out there that are sitting there at, in some cases 30 and 40 years of age,
right,
single, depressed, no idea what they're going to do with their life. It's like, well, get out there.
Get up and dance.
Yeah.
Throw the music on. I always tell people this, like, get the music on, throw it like really loud. Like you don't have to listen to it quiet, but not in your ear, like get a speaker and then just take the room and dance. Like I do that. If I need to like de-stress, I do that. Major. It's like I guess it's part of my DNA. And mom said that when she was younger, they had this speaker and they just throw the tunes on and they go into the living room and dance.
That's amazing.
It's the best.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Dancing for me is in some ways becoming a lost art. I rewatched my episode 1 with my friend Nick Ferrucci, and that's exactly what he said. He said it's a dying art. And I'm like, no, it's not.
You gotta teach our kids to dance. That's like my thing of like, when I have kids, you're knowing how to dance. There's no question. You're gonna know how to 2-step, 3-step, and Kaylee dance. I love Kaylee dancing, square dancing, all of that. It's just so fun.
It is fun, and it's so positive in a world filled with chaos and negativity.
I agree.
It's just, and you can, it's inside you. You can just produce it and share it with everybody.
Sure, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's such an empowering thing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned education.
Yeah.
How important is sort of, I guess, dancing education?
Yeah.
And music education? How important is that to you?
Oh, I'm very passionate about it. I teach as well. And actually last year...
I didn't know this until today, actually.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Thanks to the shout out to the London District Catholic School Board, because I have to say, so last year I was asked to fill in for a brief time, which turned into being a very extended amount of time at my old high school, which was CCH, where they have their music vocal program there. And full disclosure, I can't really read music. I can, but I'm all by ear. So I got called in though, because they needed to have a supply for this program. They were changing leadership, and so I got asked to go in. Having gone through the program though, knowing what it was like, and my past teacher Don Sells, who was monumental in building this. I don't know if you know about it, but this choral program, have you?
No.
Oh my gosh, this is the problem. So like the music education in London is outstanding. And when I then ended up leading the choir through the whole year, and we did Kiwanis Music Festival, and I know how to conduct now, kinda. Like music education is so important. What I saw that like even totally different style, but like choral music does for kids in their ability to emote and perform and learn other social skills and collaborate, and it was artistic, like so many things. And then me being able to infuse a little bit of my folky kind of stuff in there and teach them dancing, to be honest. I'm very passionate about music education, and I will continue doing something like that as I go forward. Because it's very important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jer, there's a link. If you scroll down, there's a link you can click on and bring up.
Oh,
there we
you
go.
have it.
I do. I did see it. Yeah, and I put it in here. So Jer.
Oh my gosh, this is great. Oh, this is great.
Yeah. So We'll get it on here. Just give it 1 sec. There we go. And then the video's just below, Jared. Yeah, so just click on that. Great.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So this is a high school program in London?
I have to give these guys so much credit. They learned that in like, I'm going to say, I think 3 to 4 practices. Like first practice being given the music. Like they're very, this song, so that's one of my songs, and I asked, shout out to the Canada Council of the Arts. I got funded to collaborate with a couple of my friends who are choral arrangers, and so took some of my songs and then made them into SATB, and so that would be a more contemporary style for them. They also do I'm talking serious classical music. And they do very well in all the competitions, and it's a privilege to work with them. And it was just fascinating seeing what folk music in education can do, the importance of classical education, and like massive shout out to London, like major, so impressive. And I wish more people knew about it. I hope as I keep going that I can shout out about all of our music programs.
Yeah, because even I didn't know, and my wife and I were contemplating putting my daughter into a music program.
Yeah.
I know, I think, shout out to Mark Macaulay. I think the Macaulays ended up in a music program here in town at one point. And, we were thinking of the same thing.
You mean the Macaulay brothers, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was George that taught at
That's right.
CCH.
You got it.
Oh, yeah, I totally remember that. He was, at the time, very intimidating for little Emily from Dorchester. He's football. And anyway, but then later we got talking.
Hilarious.
Oh, my gosh. But no,
He's a teddy bear. It's hilarious.
But they're great. They're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my dad mixed sound for them in their early days.
Amazing.
And so I got to spend in the early days when they were performing like in the band shell in Victoria Park and they were performing all over. I got to see them. And I looked up to them, and I never said this to any of them, but I looked up to them in a lot of ways because at the time, they were very much, obviously, some of their sound and some of their feel was modeling after the Jacksons, right? But they were their own thing. They really were. And coming out of London, trying to do your own thing like that was, at the time, it was more difficult than I think people realized. Yeah. Especially for the genre that they were trying to do in the town they were trying to do it in. But they've all, in their own right, they're all incredible, musicians and performers and writers. And they're all still involved in music and doing stuff. And they just played not that long ago. But I only bring that up because, to your point, the music programs that exist, like half of them I wasn't even aware of. And this one I wasn't aware of. And then I saw it on your website and I was like, wow, what is this?
Well, and that's just like a collaboration. Like, and like it goes to show too, like, look there, like you have a bunch of professional musicians who are not just doing it, for fun. Like I do it professionally, and so do the Macaulays, and yet some of us are all also working within education to some degree, and it's just like, wow, London, not for myself, but I think of other people, and like there's the St. Mary's Choir program, not to mention Fanshawe, and like we have a lot of professionals here that I hope that it just continues to education, and then the professional music world will come together because it's so exciting.
It is. When I was I didn't go to CCH, but I went to John Paul. Amazing, and one of the music teachers there at the time was Andrew Petroshinas.
Yes.
And Andrew has done
I don't
it.
know, but I've heard.
Yeah, well, no, Andrew. Shout out to Andrew. I mean, he's done an incredible amount of stuff at the Grand Theater, and just unbelievable some of the stuff that he's put together, and especially for the kids show, the high school musicals
Yeah.
that happen there. But there's again, it's an example of again professionals being involved in the school system,
Sure.
being incredible at putting together some inspiring stuff for these kids, and I'm one of them. And so it's it's a great thing. But I think music education is super important. We got my daughter in piano right now.
Yeah.
We tried with one teacher, didn't work out so well. So we took her out, and then we were like, okay, well, maybe we'll take a break.
Right.
And then my wife, of course, being the strong-willed woman that she is, she's got her grade 10 piano, and she's like, no, we're going to figure out a way. And we found another teacher, and we got her in, and it's working amazing now. And so sometimes it's just finding the right fit.
Oh, totally. And when I feel like when a parent can see that there's an aptitude, even if the kid doesn't 100% enjoy it. I mean, you don't want to force anybody to do something they don't want to do, but I think about like back to when I was saying I didn't like to practice when I was a kid. Like, what kid likes to practice? Like, when it's sunny out and they want to be hanging out with their friends during the summertime. Like, there's a discipline that comes with it. But I'm so grateful my parents, like your wife and yourself, are pushing, keep trying, because maybe one day you'll realize you actually love it, right?
Well, I think we don't allow her to have the phone for video. And so she's learned that she can have the phone for music. So every morning she gets in my truck, I drive her to school. Every morning, Daddy, can I have your phone for music? Daddy, can I have your phone for music?
Wow.
And she will literally, because sometimes I'm listening to a podcast or something on my phone and I'm just wrapping it up, whatever. But she will keep asking, Daddy, can I have your phone for music?
Oh
Daddy,
my gosh.
so she's obsessed with it. And
Amazing.
to the point now where over the last couple of months, I've been asking her, so like, do you want to, what do you want to do? Do you want to sing? Do you want to learn how to sing? And she's like, yeah. So.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be interesting to see.
How old is she?
She's 5.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So and she's super excited about it. And when she comes here, of course, we have a plethora of musical instruments here.
Yeah.
She grabs them all. She'll grab the pink ukulele in the corner. She'll bang on all the different drums.
Wow. Yeah.
So I can already tell she's super into it. But I think just as much as any other thing in school, I think music is just as important, if not more important, for the soul.
Oh my gosh, totally.
So I think it's super awesome that you're doing what you're doing with the schools and education and all that kind of stuff and promoting it.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think it's super important. Let's talk about your music. So what would you classify your music as?
Contemporary folk is how I would describe it.
Okay.
It's yeah, I write music that is contemporary. I love to produce music that's contemporary, but with a Celtic or folk bent to it. My first EP definitely did that. I also like to push the boundaries. So my most recent album is far more pop, though with subtle Celtic and folk elements in there. And honestly, at the heart of it, I love to sing. So I like songs and writing songs that the melodies are interesting. I'm melody oriented. Like that's a huge part of what Celtic music's given me. I'm very melody oriented, rhythm oriented. I do love lyrics, obviously, but it's yeah. There you go. It's a long-winded explanation.
I was listening to some of the music, obviously preparing for this episode. I was listening to some of the music, and it's awesome. There's I don't remember the name, but Jer, can you just scroll up for me, or the other way? Keep going. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's not there. Go the other way. Sorry, go back the other way. Oh yeah, there it is. What Love's Supposed to Do.
Oh wow!
So I played that song, and I've got it written there. It reminds me of like a Josh Groban song.
That's such a compliment. Thank you.
It's so true though.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
thanks.
so when I listen to music, I try to like feel the music. Right. That's just how I always was. Even when I would do lights or when I would DJ or anything, it was always like a feel thing. It was like I'm trying to connect with that energy. And it was interesting, like when I was listening to even the orchestration of the song, it was very David Foster. Like it had some of those elements that he has
So great.
in his music. So anyway, kudos to you. And I listened to Wild Horses was another one that I really liked too.
Thanks.
But it was and I want put it this way, listening to those few songs that I listened to at the time. Because I listen usually to this stuff usually the day of or the day before because I want it to be fresh. Sure. But listening to that, I'm like, I want to hear more.
Wow.
Like, I want to hear all of her stuff.
Yeah,
this
thanks.
is cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have to say that record. So with Wild Horses and What Love's Supposed to Do, actually, it's so amazing. Again, back to community. So when I lived in Ireland, I was like in this big old house, and I was a housemate with a bunch of different people. One of them being a med student, Pat McCauley, a Canadian med student in Ireland. Okay. And we became friends. And then he was a musician though. And he showed me, and it turns out he used to live in London, and there were all of these connections.
That's crazy.
I know. But then he showed me this band that were his best friends. And they're called Family of Things, and they're based out of Hamilton. And so I just started listening to them, and then of course I was amazed. And then I hear that this Brad guy who's in Family of Things is actually a like amazing choral conductor and arranger. He had just all of these amazing tools in his toolbox. And so for a while I'd been listening to their music. Fast forward, I was like, okay, it's time to make a record, looking for new people to collaborate with. And so I called up Brad and Aaron, and it worked out. And so Brad Barnum and Aaron Brown. And but all of, like, I would definitely say What Love's Supposed to Do, Brad did a lot of piano work on the album, and he is totally like that ballad song. Like, he just knows what to do. And so
that helps.
Yep, it does. It does. It takes a lot of pressure off too. Like, I know I play piano and I usually do accompany myself, but it was awesome to then just like focus on the vocal and be kind of behind the scenes listening to how the music was being created. It was really cool. So yeah, I love that song. I love singing it. I
was going to ask you this. Do you have like a set group of musicians that you work with, or do you work with all different kinds of people?
I have my crew, but it's not always the same for every show. I've been doing a lot in the past couple years, trio, more acoustic. Mm-hmm. My next stuff, I'm going to definitely be pulling in more musicians. So I would say a bit of both. I play a ton with Xavier, my cousin.
Oh yeah.
He's there's like a genetic understanding. I don't know what it is, but yeah, like to play music with him, it's just easy. And like, let me tell you, I think it is excruciating for other musicians to sometimes play with us, because we are, like you were talking about, it can look slick, but you probably don't know what you're doing. Like, there's a lot of that. But I mean, it's great. I love it. And yeah, so that he'd be and he's like helping produce my new stuff now and helping me write it. Like, we're really collaborating. So that would be the main. But then Tom Fitzgerald, he's a fiddler. He lives in New York now, but he's from Ontario. Kyle Weymouth, that I play a lot with, like lots of trad people and folk people.
Cool.
So yeah.
So how important is collaboration in what you do in like the genre and all the stuff that you're doing?
I thrive in collab. I also do a lot independently, but writing with other people is very fun. Even if it's just like, it doesn't have to be two songwriters, like vocalists. It could be just some instrumentalists and a vocalist. Like, I just love working with people. I'm an extrovert. I love working with people.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
I am too. I actually put my writing career on hold because the main person I was writing with couldn't do it anymore. Life changes and things, and so I just kind of sort of, okay, no problem. And my life changed too. I had 2 little kids. And
amazing.
So, but I totally know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's amazing how you go into a room. And you have I have done it so many times where, like, I go in and I don't even know what I want to talk about. I don't have any inspiration, and then all of a sudden, boom, we have a song. It's amazing.
Yep, I've been there.
Spiritual.
I've been there. Probably my classic, example of this was my cousin and me were writing together. and I went to Toronto, and we were at his place, and it was the first time I had seen him after his stepmom passed away. And we sat basically for like 45 minutes to an hour with, a bottle of whiskey, and just talked. And then I said, okay, well, let's go work on something. And he started playing. He was playing on the keyboard, and he was playing something. He kept playing this one melody over and over again. And in a matter of 10 minutes, I wrote the whole song.
Wow.
And the song was about his stepmom passing away and telling him that everything was going to be okay.
Amazing.
Right.
Wow.
And it was a dance song. So we're like, it's supposed to be this positive, like uplifting song. And so it was a very interesting thing that we did. But exactly, like I had no clue what was going to happen. His stepmom had passed away. We hadn't gotten together and written anything in months. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like what you're saying. It's, and yet here, and here comes this amazing song out of it. So yes, this can happen.
It totally can.
When you get together with people.
Yeah.
What were some of, obviously, I mean, being, around your mom and everything was a big influence, but were there other, because you mentioned pop music, were there other influences and stuff that shaped your music over time?
I loved country growing up, major. Yep. And I still do. In fact, I've kind of like reacquainted myself more and more with it over the past couple of years. And, so I listen to a lot of country. Are you talking more like artists?
Both, yeah, like genres, artists, even like certain things like festivals you went to or performances, anything that sort of shaped it.
Oh, there's lots. Keith Urban would be a huge influence on me.
Really?
Yeah, and
wow.
I've ended up working a little bit with his bass player and prolific writer, Jerry Flowers, and that whole crew, though I would only know Jerry, but there's like I love musicians who sing, like the Keith and his whole band are just obsessed with music. It's not about you gotta know how to perform and stuff like that, but it's like really every time I've ever seen him perform, and then I've written with Jerry a little bit, it's always this soulful, like it's about the music. So artists like that really get to me. Alison Krauss would be a huge influence. I got to see her live. Oh my gosh, it was so great. I played Ottawa Blues Fest last summer, and then I got to go. I had a couple tickets that they give you with your whatever, being able to play there, and I got to see her with Robert Plant, and it was unreal. She's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Performance experiences. I do remember I was at Irish Fests in the States. So Dublin Irish Fest. It's like huge festival, really awesome. And I remember I was with my aunt Natalie McMaster, and she graciously had me come out as as the singer on the one tour, and she must have wanted to absolutely, because it was amazing. She had J.D. Blair as her drummer, who was like Shania's old drummer, like some amazing musicians. So you'd think I'd just like stick to the status quo. What we rehearsed, we are going to stay there. But nope, I had different ideas. So I get up there, and I remember because it was a huge crowd, all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna ask the crowd to sing. I'm gonna do it, and like that's risky, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know if they know the song, and it wasn't like it was Loch Lomond, which is a popular song, but not like some of the other ones.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I did it. And I was like, we're going Celine Dion on this. Like we are performing. And I did, and it worked. And I remember looking at me after being like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it worked. Really well done. And it was really affirming to me because I took a chance. So that was huge.
You got to take a chance once in a while.
It sounds probably, when I say it, I'm like, okay, that's not that interesting. But for me at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, I did it. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can feel the energy coming off you right now.
I was walking on stage. I wasn't just standing at the mic. Like some of those things are huge, to learn how to perform and back to dancing, like learn to dance and move your body. And yeah.
Yeah, and all the little bits in between too, right?
Totally.
Like keeping the crowd's attention, and
Yeah.
you know,
It's an art.
it is an art.
That's a huge art.
It
Yeah.
is, and kudos to those people out there that do it. I think it's interesting that you bring up Keith. I mean, I'm a huge Keith fan, and not necessarily for the same reasons as other people. I mean, I obviously like his music. My wife and our dance at our wedding was one of his songs.
Amazing.
And like, and it's, to me, you know, my thing with Keith is his passion. When he commits and he performs, it doesn't matter how many people are there. It doesn't matter what city he's in. He's on. Like, he is on, and he's on 100%.
Totally.
It doesn't matter if he's got his whole band behind him or him alone on a B stage with a one spotlight. There's no video walls. There's nothing. It's just him. And actually, there's a couple of people, one being my brother-in-law, that over the last, you know, decade or so, have said to me, you know, I'm really interested in singing. I'm really interested in music.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And one of the things that I do is I show them several different artists, and one of them's Keith Urban. And there's a specific video of Keith alone with a spotlight singing this one particular song. I can't think of what it is right now. It'll come to me. Yeah. And he is so into it. He just starts rocking out. He's all by himself. And he just starts going at it and it's just, it's an unbelievable video that if you're a young person and you want to learn how to be a singer and perform, it's like, you got to watch that video.
Totally.
Because he just goes all out, and it didn't matter if there was one person in the crowd or a million. It didn't matter. And to me, that's, you know, there's several artists out there. Peter Gabriel's another one for me.
So good.
That is like, you know, I got to see him and Sting perform each other's songs.
Wow. That is so amazing.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
And, but you know, I mean, these are some people that, like you said, they are literally obsessed with the energy that is their music.
That's something you bring up a really good point, because it's like, and I am grateful to my roots, my Celtic roots, that have taught me this, because Celtic music's introverted as a genre by nature. It's the songs and the music of the people. It's not intended necessarily to be commercialized. It can be, and that people have done that successfully, but it's like, it's about the music, and like, there's nothing better than like sitting in a room. Literally right before this interview, actually, I was watching videos from like last year's Leahy music camp, where there was like we always have jam sessions, and just watching, like, oh my gosh, like, we're just sitting in the living room doing this. There's no need to perform. And I'm not knocking performing, but I do get nervous of what, you know, social media. I mean, this is probably just me making an excuse for myself, but I get nervous that we're becoming more about the notoriety of it, how things look, how things sound even. We're so used to this extremely perfect sounding music that's out there. And also just the numbers, the likes. And I know it's important. I know it's part of the industry. I get it. But I appreciate the musicians that show me. They don't have to tell me, but they show me through just the way they perform and they make music, that it's like, wow, this is because you love it and you're really good at it. It's not there's not a lot of an agenda behind it. Yeah. It's for the music. And my mom and my family have always been very adamant about that, where it's like, the moment you make it about anything else, fame, money, notoriety, whatever it is, people liking you, change your sound for the sake of going into a market that makes you more money, like any of those sorts of decisions that aren't motivated by just like your art, and I believe like a God-given gift that you've been given, and you have a responsibility to that, like, good luck. You got to make it about the music. I preach here. I don't want to sound preachy, but yeah, for people like Keith, people like Alison Krauss, there are a lot. I like Peter Gabriel, like all of these names, Sting. I saw him live here too. Like, it's so obviously they love music.
Yeah, and they love sharing that.
Oh yeah,
right?
Big time.
It's
authentic.
absolutely. And I think it's interesting. I think that there's so many layers of what it takes to be quote successful.
Fair. Yeah.
I think it depends on what you measure success as. I think that if you're right, if you measure success as likes, or you measure success as money, or you measure success as where you live and what size house you have, or what car you drive, or what watch you wear, you end up in a vortex of never enough.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And it's like, I've gotten wrapped up in it. Like, my God, like, I'm an independent artist. Of course, I'd love to, progress things and, be on tour all the time, or a lot of the time, or whatever it is. But don't get caught up in all of it. Just make the music and share it, and we're lucky to have these avenues, and social media is not a bad thing. But anyway, I'm preaching. I'll stop.
No, it's okay. It's you're passionate about it, and that's good. There's people like you that help to make change with it, right?
I hope. I gotta get my act together though a little bit. I feel like I do. There are some people that are excellent at all of this. I'm not always great, but I do love my music and I love to share it.
Well, you're a voice. You're a voice, and you're a force out there. And I mean, we're all working together, trying to move things in the right direction.
For sure.
And I think that when I look at what's happening out there, I think that, to me, music is soul food. So to sort of speak to what you're saying about it being about the music, I think that it is about the music, because the music, if you can be yourself, and speaking of a band from Ireland, U2, I mean, if you can, look at what those guys have been able to do over how many decades, after how many albums, they can still fill the Rogers Center.
I know.
That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when you've done what they've done, which is you've had these massive stage shows to the point where, like, I think one of them's a shopping mall now. Like,
right.
But like, everybody will tell you it's really hard to stay on top like that.
Yeah.
Right? But here's a band from Ireland that's been able to do that. And I mean, not without an incredible amount of sacrifice, an incredible amount of work, an incredible amount of people and money and all of that stuff. But at the core of it all, one of my favorite songs ever is Where the Streets Have No Name. And, there's a story that I've told multiple times on this show about that song, and about how that my father played that song at Western at a soft event.
Cool.
And I had no idea. I had not seen my father perform at that point. And, I was running follow spot at the back of the room, and I knew that day when that first crescendo hit and the whole crowd jumped off their feet in Alumni Hall.
Wow.
I knew right then and there, I was like, I got to support my dad and whatever it is he does.
Right.
And I said that whole thing a little bit more elaborately as my groom's speech at my wedding and everything. But so U2 and that music that they created plays such a role in my life. But that's what it is. The music is what feeds the soul of the people that connect with you and your music. And if you cut corners on that, all you're doing is you're sacrificing the connection with people.
That's such a great way of putting it. You're totally right. And I'm not saying that, like, obviously being successful is a great thing, and all of the fun parts of the music industry that people aspire to. It's great, but you can't sacrifice your music. You can't sacrifice, like, your art.
No.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Not for anything.
No.
And it does mean, like, shout out to Jordan and the guys from Texas King, because it doesn't mean that you don't have to work really hard sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
I've watched those guys do the typical, like, bunch of guys in a van, traveling around the country doing, and they're doing it again, right now. But, like, it's like sometimes you have these incredible opportunities where, 2 degrees of separation in the music business.
Sure.
Sometimes you have these great opportunities where you can bypass some of those little pieces.
Sure.
But, like, a lot of times you can't. And so it, there's people who have been successful in music, especially in Canada, where we have summer for only 3 or 4 months a year.
I know, yeah.
And so it can be difficult here to tour and to bring your music to the masses. So you have to really want it. But I think that you're right. I think that the music is number one.
Yeah.
And that's where music education comes in.
Totally.
That's where collaboration comes in. This is why I bring these topics up.
Love it.
Because
yeah.
I think that there's not enough people, I don't know about the rest of the world, but there's not enough people in this country talking about this stuff.
I agree. It's so refreshing. Because when I was in Ireland, I was surrounded by people who were like studying music. So we were all in the theoretical world. And then now though, it's like, okay, like back to like, what am I going to do about this? Like, you know, what am I, like education would be something I'd be super passionate about. And even just community camps. Like my family does run a music camp, Leahy music camp. And it's for anyone who is looking to learn Celtic music, but then we bring all kinds of other artists in and from different genres from Canada and outside of Canada. And it's just so amazing to see how just even like a week like that, or maybe seeing one concert or anything like that, can be the spark in someone wanting to put music in their life a little bit more deeply.
Absolutely.
And
where does this camp happen?
Lakefield, Ontario.
Really?
Yeah, right where my mom and her family grew up. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit of a hidden secret. We always joke because there's this instructors concert that happens on the Monday night, and I mean, like, you're getting some serious musicians in the room that are like, just like Shane Cook from here, another amazing musician I work with a lot, and he was there. He's been there many times. Like all kinds. And then, like I said, other people that are not necessarily Celtic musicians, but, you know, and we have this concert, and it's like the best kept secret. Guess not a secret now, but, you know, like that, that happens. And it's now open to the public if you want to come. But, yeah, it's awesome seeing how education, music, it's all so important, and it's community. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. I'm gonna have to check this out. This sounds fun.
Yeah.
So with your music, you said that you're probably gonna be bringing on more musicians.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What's going on there?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was just talking to Xavier. Yeah, I think he's coming down this weekend, and we're gonna work on some stuff. And he has a couple tracks that he won't show me yet. But he's really excited, but he won't show me yet. But the music that's coming
must be good.
I know. Well, yeah, he's amazing. So I'm very excited. But overall, the music that's coming is so far back a little bit to my roots, back a little bit more to the folk side, but will include drums, will include bass, you know, backline. And yeah, I feel like between the EP and my recent album, it'll be a proper mix of the two. And for the live show, it will just be super emotive. It'll be super dynamic. It'll have all my live shows generally have song, instrumental, and dance to some degree. So just like building upon that, and hopefully getting some people crying and dancing all in 2 hours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's it like? And obviously, if I was interviewing somebody from the U.S., I'd probably get a completely different answer because it's such a huge market down there. Yeah. But I'm interested to know your take on this. So what's it like being a woman in the music industry?
Oh, wow. It's great. Honestly, I don't really find I've lost opportunities or had opportunities because of being a woman. I admit I'm probably a little bit controversial here, but I don't mind it. I'd much rather be hired because of my music being darn good than because I'm a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so the only thing I'll say is there, and it's always been like this, but there can be a sexualization of women overall, just in any like you don't have to be in anything. You do not need to be in the public eye or performing or anything like that. But I'm not into that. You can be beautiful, you can be sensual, but you don't need to give it all away. So that would maybe be the only. I don't even want to call it a pressure though, because it's a choice. I'm not going to do it. So I don't know. Canada's been pretty great. Canada is really supportive of all artists, and yeah, and like, oh my gosh, when I think about it, like Celine Dion would be like I can't believe I didn't say this before. She's like a massive influence on me, and like look at her, like classy, powerhouse of an artist.
Absolutely.
Like, what a role model
In so many
for
ways.
me. And I think actually that probably was a huge influence for me when I was younger, because there is no absence of strength, sexiness, all that, but she was so, it was all, again, it was like all about the voice and the music and her oh my gosh, it's infectious. So yeah, I thank God for Canada, for somebody like her, that she made it as far as she has, and because it was huge for me to see. You know, it'd be different
absolutely.
if maybe I will say today it might look a little different. I don't find we have as many sometimes of those classic female singers out there. Again,
Sure.
maybe I'm being controversial, but yeah, so
Yeah, no, I don't think it's controversial. I think you mentioned things like TikTok, and you mentioned all these things. I mean, sometimes, and this is not a sexist thing, whether it's male or female. This is like, it's a lot of work to learn how to play an instrument.
oh my gosh.
And it's even more work to learn how to play it well, and it's even more work to learn how to write and then perform playing that
For
instrument.
sure.
These are all like things, right? That
Yeah.
all the people watching this show that are in the music business, they all know. But what we sometimes don't realize is, like, for some young people, um, cell phones and certain technology has made some things
Yeah.
really easy.
Oh yeah.
And so easy that I think sometimes people think that it all should be that easy. And so there's that whole piece, right?
Totally.
That I think that if you're have, again, the God-given talent of singing, maybe you are a good singer, and that's great. And if you get your likes and your fame through TikTok or through whatever, that's all good. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that you're a minnow in an ocean.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, right now especially, sometimes I think that maybe both male and female can go a little too far
Right.
with giving it away, like you said,
Oh,
because
for
it's just
sure.
that easy to do on
Yeah,
those platforms.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a totally good point. And it's like that, checking yourself. And like you were saying how, like, just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean everybody is going to reach the same place or do the same thing in the same way. Like, some people are very well-known singers. I hate the word famous. So very well-known, successful singers. And some people are not necessarily as well-known, but are still equally successful, right? Like and that's been something I've had to, learn and accept. Like, I can't control the end goal, and I'm not going to sacrifice all these other parts of my life just so that I can, I don't know, be at the top. I don't know, like, but I have to keep doing it. And when I hear people, like, it is a great question. What's it like being a woman in the industry? Because I know that there are a lot of things that come with that and have affected women in the industry. But me personally, I mean, I have a really strong mom and dad. Like, mom was a great role model. I think I lucked out massively because I never was encouraged to do anything other than what I do and be what I am and, be classy.
Your mom and her whole crew was always classy.
Yeah.
Everything about it was classy. So you come from that, and that was your basis. That was what you saw, right?
And I got to see that worked too. And I hope that more young women can know that. I'm not saying don't be confident at all or hide yourself or anything like that. But when it comes to, especially in the arts, but anywhere, I just hope that there are enough people screaming from the rooftops that,
So I was going to mention this towards the end, but I'm going to bring it up now.
Great.
What is your take on this whole Taylor Swift phase, this craze that's going on?
First and foremost, give credit where credit is due. The woman has done well. And I have had many conversations with different people about her and the craze that it is. The one thing she has done was perfectly is develop relationships with her fans, and her music really appeals to, that audience, her audience, and especially early days. Like, I remember hearing her first song and liking it, and the country stuff she was doing, and then the pop stuff. It's so well produced. Like, the machine that everything she is I refuse to be the one that says somebody's success. I don't like them because they were successful. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Do I like everything she does? No. Do I like all of her music? It's not maybe on the top of my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are things that my God, when I hear how much money some of these tickets, not that she's selling them that way, but what has happened and how tickets get sold like this, it's almost, well, there are PhDs on her now, right? People are doing PhDs on Taylor Swift, I think. Like, it is amazing. Yeah.
It'll be talked about for
It will
for
be.
centuries.
It will be.
Because you're right, especially with the ticket thing. Like, that's changed everything.
It has.
I bought tickets for the upcoming Coldplay concert.
Oh, amazing.
And I guarantee you what she did with Toronto was selling out that many dates. Shaped how they sold the tickets for Coldplay, because when my wife and I were both in line for tickets, I think I was like 17,000th or something.
Oh my gosh.
She was 10,000th or something.
That's crazy.
Right? And so, but they literally, so they announced 2 dates. They put both days on sale. And while we were in the queue, I think we were at like 5,000 or something. They go, oh, by the way, we've just opened 2 more dates.
Right.
So they already knew going in that that there was a good chance they were going to sell out, because it's very, and I don't say this lightly. There's a lot of crossover in some of their fan base, right?
Right.
Of who goes to see her and who goes to see him. So the band. So I think that it's one of those things where they kind of went, oh, well, she sold out that many nights. I think we could do 4.
Yeah.
And they already had it pre-planned.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is cool. I'm like, I love going and seeing live music. So,
but the ticket prices are getting...
They're getting crazy.
Wild. And I talked to a couple of different people about this. Some that are promoters themselves and some that are artists. And you're right. They're not obviously getting all that money.
No.
There is huge expenses. I saw the video of her pulling into the venue and the amount of transport trucks outside the Rogers Center.
Humongous.
The cost of that production is just more than people can imagine. And the amount of people on that team that's traveling and that's putting that together. So there's a huge expense. And cost of living's gone up, and cost of touring's gone up, cost of buses, cost of fuel, cost of everything. So it all factors in. I get it. I kind of wonder, though, at what point, and I think this is partly why you two started, at one point, I don't know if you remember, but they went from doing Rogers Center down to going back to arenas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if we're going to get to that place again where it's not accessible for some of the real hardcore fans who maybe can't afford it. Mm-hmm. You're just not as accessible anymore at some of those price points.
It's a problem, yeah.
Right?
I was talking to a friend of mine who loves Taylor Swift, and she was lamenting about, she's seen Taylor Swift perform, but like back in the early days, right? Like when she was, I think, opening for people even.
Yeah.
Right? And then other concerts as well. And she is that person who's always been a fan, right? Yeah. And that's so honorable, like, to stick with an artist. Like, we all have those couple of artists hopefully in your life that like you've stuck with, and that's like really amazing. It's almost, even though you might not know the artist, there's an intimacy there, right?
Absolutely.
And so when she was saying she feels so terrible for these young girls or whoever they are who have never seen her, and then what's been happening with these tickets that get sold for these exorbitant prices or scams that are happening and all of this, it's like it's ripping that opportunity for that person who like has been affected by the artist to, like, that's a huge thing to go see a live show. Like, when I hear some people haven't seen a live concert, I feel awful for them. Like, it's like number one goal for whatever year it is, like New Year's resolution, go to any concert, anything, just see live music. So that sucks. And then also I can't totally speak to what, like, I don't think I've been 100% affected by what this does to artists, like smaller artists, but you know, like, how much can I then charge for a show, let's say, right? I'm not obviously going to be charging what Taylor Swift does, but how is that affecting where people will put their money? And I respect where people want to put their money. Like, I totally get that. Choose what you want to do, work hard and do what you need to do. But, yeah, it's interesting for smaller artists.
Like you mentioned earlier that you and your mom had a conversation about this. I'm interested. So revenue streams
Yeah.
as an artist, like how do you view that? Because obviously everybody that's come on here has said, shows, touring, merch, like that's pretty much it for
Yeah.
from a lot of people. But like, what's your perspective on that from your angle?
I agree. Shows, touring, merch. Um, for me, like I do, I do teach, or I'm starting now to also develop other things that are like workshops and stuff. Um, I think Celtic music's been a lucky thing for me because I don't only have to, I don't, all my eggs are not in my singer songwriter basket. I also have other things that I do. And it's been, I'm grateful for that community that I've been able to work in different kind of arenas and collaborate with other people. And Celtic music's been awesome for, could you play piano for me at the dance, or could you, there are different smaller opportunities. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been another thing, just diversifying a bit and finding what you're good at, and then not feeling like you have to do one thing only always. Um, yeah, it is hard to make money at it. Do not wish to deny it. It's not that it's deterring me from doing it, but be creative.
Be
And I could be
creative,
more,
yeah. Be
you know.
creative, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like the house party thing. I mean,
Hmm.
I think one of the things that I like that some people have said is like find a way to put on shows. Just find a
Yeah,
way. Find a venue.
totally.
Find a way to do it. Find the sound people.
Hmm.
I'm happy to support anybody in town that wants to put on a show. I mean,
For sure.
I've always been that way, and don't let those intricacies be the reason that you don't do a show.
Oh, for sure.
But it's easier said than done sometimes.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
some people don't want to take some of those chances. Like
Uh-huh.
like sometimes you did on stage there that one night. Sometimes taking
Yeah.
those chances, it takes real heart, real drive,
Totally.
real guts, and
My friend who lives just close to Woodstock, she just moved here. She got married and moved here, and she and her husband had decided we're going to have a house concert and we're going to have a series, just like Stonecroft house concerts happen near Ingersoll. And she has this big back deck, and they set up the sound system, and like my Xavier, Tom Fitzgerald, and then myself played, and people came. And it was just an outdoor backyard concert. It's not flashy or anything, but
mm-hmm.
kudos to Carrie and the Lovey Street house concerts,
That's
because
cool.
they did it. And like I think you know what, I again, I'm like, practice what you preach, Emily. Like I'm not doing that enough, but yeah, if you have a space, that's the other thing. If you need a space, but
Yep.
find a way of bringing some people into your house and just have a tip. If people are coming to listen to some music, I've done house concerts where people have been, graciously generous, and yeah, it's cool, and it's a great way to test out new music. You know,
Absolutely.
so
I have to take a page out of your book and put my money where my mouth is. I've been invited by my friend Adam Plant to
okay.
house concerts at his place. I don't know, 6 times now, and there's always something kind of going on. So next season, Adam, I'm in. But you know what? I absolutely agree with you. It could be a great way to work out new material.
Yeah.
Everybody's there for the right reasons. There's, they just want to listen to your music, listen to you, get to know you, have a good time. So that's interesting. I'm excited to go check it out at some point. What would you say is one of the sort of bigger helping hands that sort of helped you stay or get in, like, get to where you are now in music?
Lots of people. My family, first and foremost, in multiple ways. Like just seeing them supporting me, them encouraging me to perform, all of that stuff, finding opportunities for me, like all that when I was younger. My community of musicians that I grew up with, that was huge. My cousins, like all of that. It's amazing when you're surrounded by people who do it. It's just so motivating. My first producer for my EP, Pete Wallace, was massively encouraging. He had a lot of, like, I had not worked with anybody, so I have to give him a lot of credit because he we had met years prior and just kept in touch, but we always listened to each other's music or kind of knew where each other was at. And then when I moved to Ireland, we had formally connected again, and he took a chance, like a huge chance, which was huge for me because you do something I've learned is it's easy to find people who need money, right? You can go and find somebody to produce if you tell them you're going to pay them X amount of money, right? Or amount of dollars, like, or if they name a price. And don't, I hate to say it, but don't be too desperate. Find the people that like genuinely believe in what you're doing, and that's what happened. And that was very influential and motivating and confidence boosting. Oh my gosh. And then different, like even festivals that have had me at their festivals, like anyone who's supporting artists and just like making opportunities is huge. And then family, again, back to family and friends. Like, I have been very lucky with some people in my life.
I can see that now. Yeah. Absolutely. The producer thing's interesting. Like, do you think that working with, in any way that you can, obviously, if for people out there, do you think that working with a good producer makes a difference?
Oh yeah, I think that. Well, what would you mean by good?
Okay, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, so, well, you can speak to that because I mean, I've done my own production and stuff like that, so I can't. I'm biased, obviously, on what I've done.
Sure.
But like, no, I guess what I'm saying is like, what do you look for when you look for a good producer? Like, what does that look like?
It's funny you ask that because, well, I have to like what they've done, right? I have to like what they've done, and I want to probably make sure. For me personally, I want to know that they know what to do with vocals, because some people focus more on different things within production, so for me it would be vocals major. I need to make sure that my folk and my folk roots are honored in what I do. I don't want somebody looking at me saying, I don't get it, we're not including that, or that idea, no, or you should sound like this, like any of that, or too much of that. Sometimes it's okay, but I want to find somebody who like hears me. I'm like maybe a bit, as I continue doing this, like I don't mind the odd bit of control or like I'll say my opinion, which sometimes you got to shut up. Like, great example is the song on my recent record, Changing. It was at the end of the project and we were like kind of crunched for time. And so we laid down like a piano vocal, and then I just left it with the guys. And I came back like a week and a half later, and the track was pretty much done, and it's my favorite track on the record. And I had nothing to do with the production. So there's like that healthy balance of like, artist is heard, artist is invested inside the making of the music, but then also artists, you need to get away, you're too close to everything, and let the producer do what the producer does. I've definitely learned that the hard way. Not the hard way, but I realize that now more. But main point is just like, you kind of gotta date a bit. Date the producers a little bit. Like, you've got to see...
Figuratively, of course.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Sorry, yes, figuratively. But it doesn't just click, right? Like, you have to make sure, maybe you try something out. Like, you try one song or you meet with them. Like, my last record, I went over to Brad's house and we just sang together. There was no recording studio. It was just piano, vocal, himself and I.
Interesting.
And we shot ideas, and through that, it was like, oh yeah, he gets it. Yeah, he's going to get this, right?
Oh, cool.
So very different now, because Xavier and I are making this music, and we've been playing for so long that he just like inherently gets what I'm doing, and we've been playing some of the music that we're recording. So yeah, I have not answered a single question there. It's
no,
just
but I think it's interesting, because I think that what you're talking about, without talking about it, is you're talking about different stages, right? So like,
sure.
like what you're doing with Xavier is you're at a different stage where all of a sudden, because of that sort of connection that you have and how in sync you are, you're focused, right? Yeah, I think is what you're saying. You're like, this is what we want to do.
Sure.
So maybe you need a producer a little less, right? Whereas, a little less.
Yeah.
And whereas, maybe if you were doing some stuff on your own, maybe you'd want some input. Hey, what do you think of this? And like you said, you need to know that person gets you.
Totally.
Right? Because you don't want them to take who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what your mom's, I'm sure, taught you is like take who you are and then all of a sudden change it.
Change it.
No.
And then you also want a producer who's going to push you. That's the other thing that I'm like, I don't want to sound the same as my last record. Like I want to push my sound, or I want to push my limits.
Country.
I don't know. I know, right? That's
you said you were getting back in the country, so I
do love country. Yeah, I do love country. Well, no, hey, I don't sound quite, I think, country enough for country, but there's a lot of great music out there. I mean, Post Malone's new record, I'm obsessed with.
Yeah,
some of that stuff is so good. But no, I don't know. We'll see what happens with the music and where it goes. But yeah, you want your music, you want to grow. I think my aunt was telling me about Peter Gabriel actually, and she's like, and I agree, like none of his records sound identical. Like he always just,
even within the album, even song to song, like there's huge swings of of how he changes from song to song, even within an album, like even within I can listen to that album cover to cover, and every single song is different, but they're all super emotional, super passionate, super connecting. But yeah, Peter's a force.
So good.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you had to give advice to people who are coming up in music, what would it be? What would you say to them?
Oh my gosh, I probably could take the advice myself. But anyway,
well, you've been connected to some like successful people, and you've had a lot of like things instilled in you, so I'm just curious.
Like, it's so obvious and maybe a bit cliche, but like know who you are and work hard at developing your own sound. I learn an instrument. If you're just a singer, learn an instrument, learn the piano, learn the guitar. Not that you have to always do that, but it's amazing what it does for you. Go forward, where if you want to travel somewhere, pitch a song to a publishing company, I don't know, anything. For you to be able to play for yourself is really helpful, and very you just you've added something to your toolbox.
Do you think that people that can't do that, like you give the example of pitching, like do you think that people are held back by that sometimes?
I can't really say fully. Like I know there are a ton of people who don't play an instrument. I do know though for myself, years ago I went to a songwriting workshop. Daryl Scott, I don't know if you know of Daryl Scott.
Yeah,
amazing writer. And I went to one of his workshops, and it was at that point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to play for myself. Like I never used to do that because I'd always have somebody accompanying me. But I wanted to do the songwriting workshop. I went down by myself, sitting in a room. It was so funny. I was like in a room of like 30, 40s definitely, and I was 17. They were like 20, 30, 40, but I was like much younger than everybody else. But I had to learn how to play the piano, learn how to accompany myself. And that moment made me realize, oh my gosh, like I need to work at this. Like this is helpful to what I'm doing in my songwriting. So yeah, there would be that, and get really good at your instrument. Get really good at it. Like singing, yes, as well. Like major, develop your craft, protect your voice. But like my piano, when I'm like working, like learning chord progressions or learning a melody or any of this stuff, it always feeds into what you create. So sometimes doing that just making that decision to study, always be a lifelong learner, right? That would be it. And then, I don't know, make sure you always check yourself as to why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Check yourself why you're doing it. Like, there are tons of reasons why we all might be doing it, but there are not always a ton of reasons why it's good to be doing. Like there are, how do I say it? You can find a lot of reasons that probably aren't the greatest reason to do something. Does that make sense? I know that there's a better way of saying it.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. It's something I think some people sometimes after part way through the journey. That's why I was saying there's different parts of the journey. I think that that's something that some people probably struggle with, right?
Yeah.
And they get to like a fork in the road, and they're like, "Why am I doing this?" And sometimes they move away from music, which if that's your choice, that's it. Like you said, it's your choice.
Totally.
Right? And I think that's your choice. That's the choice you want to make. Then fine. Mm-hmm. Everyone that I know who's made the choice to get away from music, I wouldn't say regrets it later, but they definitely wish they would have stayed with it. Yeah.
I can't imagine my life without music. Like I can't. I cannot imagine it. It would, oh my gosh. But I mean, like when I think about why I do it though, like oh my gosh, so many times where I thought I was going to be famous and I acted like such a piece of work. Oh my gosh. That's why I'm always like, I sound really pontificating. Like I don't come with like, I really don't want an ego in this. Like I just want to do it for the music. But, yeah, like making sure that you're not doing it for the ego side of it. And it's so easy to get caught up in that, even if you're not doing like huge gigs, right? Like ego's a danger. Well, I find it can be dangerous, right?
It can be.
And like imagine you're sitting there and everyone's clapping for you and wow, and you're the center of attention. Like it's wild, right? Yeah,
you can get overconfident real quick, especially if you're basing some of it off social media.
Oh, dear God. It's like a blessing and a curse that I'm like look at me squirt. I'm like, I'm uncomfortable with it, but, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I sound like I'm learning every day about this industry and how to make it work and what to do, but I'm just glad I love making music and that's never failed. That's never left me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's going on? So what's in the future for you? What do you have coming up?
In the near future, I am heading out with Leahy for some Christmas dates.
Yay!
In the States. And
are they planning on playing in Canada anytime soon?
I actually should ask Mom that. I'm like, I don't know if they have many dates in Canada right now. I know that things are probably in the works. Okay. But yeah, the Christmas craze right now is starting. It's only a couple dates, but I'll be going out with them, which will be very fun. And then some work with Shane Cook. He's a fiddler from here in London. He's actually from Dorchester, but he lives in London now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Shout out to Dorchester.
Dorchester's like going to be part of London pretty soon.
I know, you're right. Oh my gosh. No, I'm going to be, I'm protecting my little town. It'll stay Dorchester. But no, so we're going abroad to the UK for Celtic Connections, which is an amazing festival that I'm excited to be part of. So that's with like all London or close to London musicians, Kyle Weymouth, Joe Phillips, and myself and Shane. And then recording, and then the summer's starting to shape up with some cool stuff. And
sweet.
Onwards, yeah.
How do people find you if they want to book you for gigs, if they want to see you play? How do they find you?
Yeah. My website's a great place, or you can just DM me on Instagram.
You're pretty quick at responding.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's not bad.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So any of those social channels or my website is a good start. So
cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you. No, this is really great. Enjoyable. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching Music City Live. If you liked this episode, like the video. And for more clips and episodes, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the conversation by commenting below and visit us at musiccityliveshow.com.